Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing a notebook review and paper test. It is of this notebook, or this is the box the notebook comes in. It is from IA and it is called the Notebook for Writers. This is a really luxury product from a Japanese brand who are doing super interesting things across multiple platforms and all that kind of stuff. This is an award-winning notebook, and so let's have a look at it. I'll talk about parts and features, and I'll talk about the paper and show the writing tests. So box comes with a little paper sleeve over the top of it with the information sort of embossed. And it says on here a range of things like watermark lines guide your pen. As words come into focus, the lines fade into the background. IA notebook crafted for writers. That's all embossed there. So as it says, the lines are watermarked. Now there's been a couple of online videos about this notebook, and I really enjoyed them, so I reached out to the company and they were very generous in providing one of these for me to show you. So it comes in this lovely wooden box, and what's nice about that is because it is a luxury notebook, if you decided that you wanted to keep it after it's been used, this is a really great way of archiving or storing. It's like that light wood that a lot of sort of pen boxes from say like Wantra and things like that sort of come in. This is the belly band of the book, and this is the book itself. So you can see there's this like lined pattern on the front, and this is in a nice sort of sturdy, very heavy, sturdy paper card stock on the front and the back. And once again, it says handcrafted in Japan, IA, a little bit of information. So it's got this lovely hard, sort of off-white colored cover. These sort of embossed lines. It's a nice mesh and glued sort of open binding, which means that the notebook can lay flat really easily. And it's got nice sort of rounded corners, and the cover goes all the way to the edge. One thing it comes with is this heavy black card writing board, and you'll see the reason for that in just a little bit. If we open up, nice plain blank end pages, and then we get to the actual pages themselves. Now you can see it's slightly under this light, but it is harder to see, I will grant that. These are watermarked lines in the paper. So they're not printed on, they're watermarked in, and I have no idea how they do that. I remember Blake from Blake's broadcast, his channel from, he reviewed this notebook, and he was talking about how some of his notebooks have watermarks and it's impossible to get it to line up properly and all that. So this must be an after, something that's done to the paper after it is, sort of cut and all that kind of stuff to make sure it all lines up really well. Because, the lines don't go all the way to the edge, but they're perfectly even and in place on every page. I'll show a quick shot of it as a watermark so you can sort of see a little bit more detail. But on the surface, it kind of looks blank, and that's kind of the point. So the idea is that you take this black heavy cardstock and you place it under the page, and you can see the lines much more clearly. So as you write, you can follow those lines, but as the little blurb described, the lines disappear as your words fill the page, and that becomes the focus, and that's really very cool. Now, this black card was an afterthought after some they got some feedback about the original version of the book, and I think that's really great. So those pages continue all the way to the back, and when we open up there, you'll see here I have done a bit of a writing sample and some information. Let's talk about the information side first. So as I said, this is the IA notebook, and Information Architects, I think, is what that stands for. And this retails for $65 US. Now they do have some deals about if you buy multiples and getting more affordable postage and things like that, but it is not an inexpensive notebook. That's over 100 Australian dollars for this notebook, which is A5 with 81 GSM pages and 144 of those pages. And the paper is Araval paper, which is a Japanese paper. It is handcrafted in Japan. It's got 10mm ruled watermark lines, and it was the winner here, as you can see, of a 2025 Red Dot Award, as well as the 2025 Japan Stationery of the Year Award in the design category. Few little stats I like to always look at. Does it lay flat? We've already established that it absolutely does. That sort of open binding really pays dividends there. There's no back pocket, there's no ribbon, there's no elastic enclosure, and I've said it's 7 out of 10 fountain pen friendly, and you'll see that here when we look at the writing sample. But I also will do a quick writing sample with a couple of pens just live so you can see it, because things like the dry time on this paper is really quite impressive. So what have I written with? Well, I wrote with Lamy Pink Clip Ink with a Lamy All-Star, an extra fine Private Reserve Infinity Blue Black in a Monteverde Axis fine nib, Endless Alchemy's Mocha Mousse Delight in an Anhand Aspect fountain pen in fine, Endless Alchemy Raven in the Endless Phantom fountain pen, Mont Blanc Manganese Orange in the Anhand Method is a medium nib, Jinhao Blue Black in a Jinhao X450 medium nib, Cross Violet in the Gravitas Monster, we'll do a writing sample here with that as well in the broad nib. Then I've got Robert Oster Tranquility in a Hongdian N2 with a fine nib, Robert Oster Soda Pop Blue in a Gravitas Piston, that's the Piston, the black fountain pen with a medium nib, and then Robert Oster Maroon 1789 in a Gravitas Micarta with a broad nib. Then I wrote with a Scrivina Rollerball, that's a Schneider refill. I then got the Unipin Fine Liner, a Uniball Eye in broad, just a nice wet gel pen. The Pentel Energel, the Muji 0.5 gel pen, a ballpoint. That was the Fisher Space pen in the wingback ballpoint pen. A little bit of a highlighter, a 2B pencil, which erased reasonably well, and as you can see, a Sharpie. There was a little bit of smear here from the highlighter, as you can see. So I wanted a range of different colors, a range of different nib sizes, a range of different ink brands. Things like that Jinhao is not the best behaved ink going around, whereas things like some of the Endless Alchemy inks are really nice. And of course, you've got a lot of Robert Oster there as well. So let's look at the reverse. So what do we actually see here? First thing we see is that there is a lot of ghosting, but nothing other than a couple of spots on the Sharpie has actually bled through. So is this the kind of paper you're going to write on both sides of? Well, there's a couple of things to take into account here. So firstly, there's a lot of ghosting, but if we put that writing sheet behind, it actually cuts quite a lot of the ghosting out. It sort of color corrects a lot of it. So you would be able to easily write on this backside of the page and see those lines quite clearly. But then of course, when you take that out, it's going to muddy both sides of that. A lot of ghosting, 144 pages of this beautiful paper, but it may be single-sided for a lot of that use. But it performs beautifully. I think it writing on it is really nice. It's got a nice sort of toothy feel. It's a nice sort of slightly off-white, but it does a beautiful job of showing up the colors. There's not a lot of sheen or anything sort of popping up. It's like that Robert Oster ink would normally get pops of sheen on Soda Pop Blue. You're not getting any of that, neither on the Cross Violet, which can sheen, but you are getting bits of shading and you are getting a really lovely representation of the color. But it is a slightly kind of absorbent paper. And while it doesn't bleed necessarily, it is soaking in, and that allows also for that quicker dry time. One thing you can see is this part up here was written with the guide line behind it as well. So nice straight lines, they do really, really work. So let's do a quick little writing sample here at the bottom of this page, just to show, the paper in action. Now I've got two pens I want to write with. The first is my fine nib on my brass Kaweco Sport, which is what this has been written with. And this has got Diamine Oxford Blue ink. So we'll say writing test with Oxford Blue, and like a few little spots, but like just writing that sentence, most of that is dry by the time we get to the end of it. Writing on it is, and this is a fine nib, it's not a particularly dry fine nib, but you can definitely feel the tooth on this paper. It's got a nice sensation. It's my kind of tooth. I don't mind a toothier paper. And then we've got the Gravitas Monster here, which has a nice big wet broad nib on it. And so we'll do a writing test with Cross Violet. Now this is a wetter pen and a sort of perhaps a slightly wetter ink there than the Oxford Blue, but already the start of that line, apart from sort of heavier spots, has started to dry, and that end will catch up. But one thing we do notice just ever so slightly with that pen, and I'll bring it up nice and close so we can actually see it here, is that because this is a wetter pen, there is a few spots where we're just getting like little hints of feather on the front of this. So I think this paper is really, when they say it's fountain pen friendly, I think for standard nibs, and they say on their website, fine and medium nibs are probably best on this paper. The broader the nib, the wetter the nib, that slightly absorbent paper is going to mean that the ink does get sort of sucked in a little bit more. and you end up with, yeah, little bits of feather, stuff like that. If we look at the reverse of that, once again, this is the only spot now where I've seen a bit of actual bleed, but you know, we are writing with a very wet nib with a relatively wet ink on this paper. So what are my thoughts about the IA notebook for writers? Well, firstly, I think the concept is fantastic and the execution of it is absolutely brilliant. This is a luxury item. This would make a fantastic gift for someone. It comes beautifully presented, as I showed, in that, you know, lovely sort of soft wooden box. Great way to present it, beautiful way to store it, all of that kind of thing. It's a unique product. The concept of watermarking the lines in, especially given that black writing board, make this a really unique option and something that I've not seen in any other notebook that I use. And you know, when you don't use that, it's open free space. If you want to sketch, if you want to, you know, do diagrams, or, you know, whatever your interest may be, you know, it's going to perform really, really well. I think with things like ballpoints, some lighter rollerballs and gel pens, and of course pencil, this paper is going to be really very, very usable, particularly sort of even on both sides. If we look at the reverse of this page here, you can see there's much less ghosting from these sort of ballpoints and the pencil and things like that than we're getting from the sort of heavier, wetter fountain pens at the top. It is not cheap. I have to say that it is not cheap, but the quality is extremely high. It's beautifully made. Every element of the design has been carefully considered and thought out. I think this is a really special notebook, and one that I'm really going to enjoy using, you know, with projects that or with a, you know, intention, I should say. It does have a wide line rule. 10 millimeters is not, you know, like my sort of go-to is around the 7 millimeter mark. So this is a very wide line rule, which means you don't get as much space to write on the page. In a lot of ways, you know, you sort of, you know, you're going to fill it up a lot quicker. But I think, you know, it does actually make for a lovely writing experience. So I'm very grateful to IA for sending this notebook out for me to look at and review for you and to share with you. Please head over to their website. I'll link to it down below. They have a ton of information about the design and all the concepts and all that kind of stuff on their website. It's a very interesting website. So go over and check that out. If this is a notebook you're interested in, check out the deals they're offering in terms of, you know, buying multiple notebooks and getting free postage and things like that. I think it's one that's worth looking at, and a brand that is going to do interesting things. And if they can find ways of incorporating these things into, you know, other products, I'm really excited to see where they go. So once again, a big thank you to them, and a big thank you to you. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got products that you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel, I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your notebooks, whatever they may be, and I'll talk to you soon.